Hey guys, welcome back to Builds by Maz. Today I'll be showing you how I built a stone fireplace wall which completely transformed our living room TV area. Let's get started. The first thing we did was move everything out of the way, that way we had a blank canvas to work on. I took a bunch of measurements of this back wall in the room and then taped out a general layout of how I wanted this fireplace wall to look. This was a great way to visualize it before I did any construction, and I could make any adjustments to sizing as needed. Once I was done, I knew what size fireplace, mantle, and TV would go well together and look good on this wall. At this stage, I needed to add an additional outlet up behind my TV area. This will be important for power access later on. If you want a detailed instructional for how to do this, or any other part of this fireplace build, you can find those videos on my channel. With the outlet installed, I could move on to framing. I started with the sides and basically made a couple of rectangular supports that extended from floor to ceiling. Most of the frame was made from 2x4s and heavy duty wood screws, because I know it would be holding up a lot of weight once the stone was installed. I attached this piece to the studs in the back wall and repeated the process for the left side. I then built out the framing for the fireplace. I went with a Dynasty Harmony fireplace, which requires 2x8s around the perimeter. I then added onto it with some 2x4s to create the full front portion of the fireplace wall. Once everything was attached, I added additional framing to the front. I'm going to be making a hidden drawer behind the mantle, so I needed to create a box out for that area. This is where the drawer will slide in and out, and I'll get into more detail on that later. I also added a cutout for the TV, so the mount could extend and attach to the wall. Finally, I added lumber along the ceiling, so the cement board will have something to attach to. This is how the framing looked once it was totally finished. We then lifted our fireplace into its designated cutout. This Dynasty fireplace is super realistic. We've been really happy with it, and I'll have more footage on it at the end of the video. I then moved on to installing the cement board. This is what the stacked stone will attach to. It cuts fairly easily with a razor blade, and I was able to just score and snap all my pieces without creating any mess. Installation was pretty straightforward. As long as I cut my pieces to the right size, all I had to do was attach them with a bunch of specialty cement board screws. This fireplace is actually designed to be built into the wall, which creates a really nice seamless look, but I had to be careful not to accidentally screw into it. Also, because my ceiling is slanted, these top pieces were more difficult, but all it took was a little extra measuring. I then filled in all the seams between the panels using cement board tape. These HardieBacker boards are designed to be installed with these small expansion gaps, but they do need to be covered up before the stone installation. After applying the tape, I just used some thin set mortar to fill in the gap. I did this for all the seams along the wall, and it only took a few minutes. Here's a view of the cement board fully installed and ready for stone. But before we get to that, I'll show you how I built my mantle with the secret drawer. I used 2x4s for the construction so it can support the heavy mantle. The whole thing will slide in and out of this opening just like this. I'm using heavy duty drawer slides which can support up to 200 pounds. I constructed the actual frame for the drawer and then traced out the dimensions onto a piece of particle board. This will serve as the bottom of the drawer, and after cutting it out, I just screwed it into the frame. I installed drawer slides on either end and then moved on to the wood mantle. I bought this old piece of weathered lumber for just $25. It just needed a little work to restore its natural color. I used some strong Deccan wood cleaner and scrubbed it into the wood. You can find this product and everything else used in the video down below in my video description. It was pretty easy to apply. I just worked it into the surface, let it sit for 15 minutes, and then thoroughly rinse it all off. You can see how good of a job it did at removing the old gray coloring. The mantle was already looking much better, and I wanted to preserve this natural color while just slightly darkening it. I added some wood stain, which I know looks really dark right here, but after wiping off any excess and letting it dry, it'll lighten up considerably. I applied just one coat all over the mantle, and after 24 hours, here was how it looked. With the mantle restored, it was time to attach it to the drawer. These will be secured together with 3 heavy-duty lag bolts. I started off by drilling pilot holes deep into the wood to make sure there was no cracking when I drilled in the lag bolts. I screwed each one about 90% of the way, and once they were all in place, I fully tightened them. Then it was time to add the drawer onto the slides in the fireplace wall. In total, it weighed about 50 pounds, and the drawer slides didn't have any problems with it. To attach the stone, I used a high-strength mortar and spread it onto the cement board using a wide-notched trowel. I'm using Myra White stacked stone from MSI. They make flat panels and also corner pieces like this, which makes installation on a fireplace wall much easier. I also applied a thin layer of mortar to the backside of each panel before pressing it into the cement board. I used a wet saw throughout this project to trim down the stone to the correct size whenever needed. When installing the stone above the fireplace, I cut out some 2x4s to act as a support while the mortar dried. I also got a lot of use out of my Dovo laser level and telescoping pole. It was perfect for this project, and it allowed me to easily keep each layer of stone absolutely straight. The next day I removed these supports, and I was really confident in the mortar's adhesion. When installing the stone above my mantle, I used some shims to make a very thin gap between the stone and wood. That way there's a little margin when pulling the mantle drawer in and out. Once I got past the mantle, the stone installation went by really quickly. MSI makes stacked stone in a variety of colors and patterns, and I recommend checking them out for your own fireplace build. To provide support over this TV cutout area, I basically built a temporary bridge to hold up the stone. Just like with the cement board, the top row took some additional measuring, and I had to cut it at an angle to match my ceiling. I also utilized a few wedge pieces to fill in the gaps. Lastly, I used some sanded tile caulk to fill in the gap between the stone and the wall to create a more seamless transition. I also used this to fill in any of the larger than usual gaps between the stone panels. I applied the caulk, pressed it into the gap, and then smoothed it out with a wet sponge. And that completed the stone installation. Basically all that was left was to install my electronics. I previously added an extendable mount directly into the studs of my original wall. This mount extends up to about 33 inches, so it was more than enough. With the TV in place, I could easily access this new outlet I added to hook everything up to. We're using a Samsung Frame TV, and the whole connection box is separate from the television, so I put that and a power strip into the mantle drawer and then press the TV flat against the stone wall. I can now access power and all the TV inputs directly from the drawer, so I never have to pull the TV back out. I filled up the drawer with all my video game consoles and controllers, and this is how it functions. I hope you've enjoyed this build, and that maybe it's inspired you to build your own fireplace or media wall. This was a major part of our living room renovation, and here you can see just how much of a difference it made. Here's some footage of our Dynasty fireplace in action. We've really been so impressed with how realistic it looks, and it's been a great focal point of the room. Remember, if you want full detailed instructionals for how to do this build, you can find those videos on my channel or in the playlist on the top left here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.